Hardy. How are you doing today, man? Welcome to the show.
Good, Drew. Good to be with you, man.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. So your aunt and my good friend Jane Barlow connected us. Super grateful for her. She was on the podcast about a month ago. People love her. Everybody loves her. So I'm so grateful that she connected us because she told me about your book. I was like, okay, I'm instantly getting this book. I have it on audio and I have the physical copy who Jane gave it to me. And I'm super excited to dive into why willpower doesn't work. But before we do that, I kind of want to introduce you to my audience, talk about you personally. The first question I have for you, man, is so you guys have adopted 3 children. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your wife is pregnant with twins.
Yes.
How do you do that, man? Like how is life right now for you and how are you managing it all?
That's a really good question. We're not really managing it very inspired. We got our kids in 2015. January, we got them as foster kids, 3 siblings. And that was my first year of my PhD program. And, it was that same year that I actually started blogging online. But basically, it was just a lot of court, a lot of craziness. We were living in South Carolina. And then earlier this year, we ended up adopting those kids. So it was amazing. And then,
Wow.
About a month and a half ago, we moved here to Orlando. Moving's always crazy. And my wife's pregnant with twins. And so, life's just kind of nuts right now. And it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down given the fact that we're now going to have twin babies. And so it's just kind of I don't know. To me, it's fun, though. One of my core values, one of my core concepts is this idea that good timber, it's one of my favorite quotes or stories, but the poem is good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees, the further sky, the greater length, the more the storm, the more the strength. So for me, it creates an environment that constantly requires me to show up, so I don't know. For me, I believe my belief is that the purpose of life is growth and learning and service. And so for me, it's just par for the course. It's never easy. It's always messy. And it's always learning and being humbled.
I love that, man. That's such a great attitude to have. And obviously in your book, you talk a lot about environment. And if you can change your environment, you can change your life because we as humans will adapt to that environment. And that's the key that I think is missing. Obviously, my brand, my audience is health and fitness, and we're going to tie it into that, but it applies to life in general. Tell me a little bit about your background, you growing up, because you're a young guy. How old are you?
30.
Yeah, you're 30. Tell me about your background, how you got into, why did you want to study willpower?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So grew up Salt Lake City, Utah. I think you live in Utah, right?
Yeah, I'm out
And that's
here.
where you met my Aunt Jane, actually.
Yeah.
And I just had pretty rough childhood. My parents had a rough divorce. It created a lot of depression and pain for my father. He ended up going through a pretty deep cycle, a super downward cycle after the divorce, got really into drugs, threw his life away for a while. And my mom was just trying to run a business actually with Jane, and they were trying to run a health club. Unsuccessfully, honestly. They were trying their best though, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so my mom was always working. My dad was, in a really dark place. And so growing up, I had zero stability. And barely ended up graduating high school. And basically it was about a year after high school. And I played Warcraft, snowboarded, just didn't go to school. Barely, never held a job for more than 2 weeks. I worked at Einstein Bagels, and one of my friends was like, let's go snowboarding. So I no call, no showed. That was who I was. I couldn't keep a job for more than a week. But it was a year after high school. I was living at my cousin's house, sleeping on his love sack, and just playing Warcraft about 15, 16 hours a day, honestly, drinking soda and eating pizza, and just was so unhappy. And so I started running, ended up serving a humanitarian mission. And that's kind of where the transformation initially began. When I came home and I was really aware of environment, even back then, I saw all of my old friends with the same paradigm, same perspective, same beliefs. And so I decided to purposefully avoid my friends from high school, and I started studying psychology, and basically I've just been studying psychology, human behavior, success. I've been studying all these things for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man.
That was kind of where the journey began. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then where did you go to school? Did you study psychology in school?
Yeah, yeah. So I went to Brigham Young.
Oh, okay, cool, man. And so you went on the LDS mission, and I'm assuming as well.
Yeah,
Where did you
yeah,
go?
yeah. Pittsburgh.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, I went to Brazil. Life-changing experience for me. But it's interesting because I listening to your book and talking about environment, and I think that's something that so many people miss. It's a missing piece in change when it comes to our perception of what change is supposed to look like. And I feel like the willpower game has been pushed for so long. And what was the turning point for you that made you like what the eye-opening experience where you're like, I need to write a book about this because this is what's missing? Like what was that for you, and how did that begin?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, when I did my undergrad in BYU, I was preparing to go into PhD programs, and I actually was applying to work with Roy Baumeister, and because my advisor during my undergrad actually was under Roy Baumeister, and Roy Baumeister wrote the book Willpower. He's actually like one of the core researchers. He's the core researcher. He's one of the most famous social psychologists in America, and he is the one who's done all the research on willpower. And I really loved it. I mean, willpower is a sexy topic, and it's something that for someone who wants to be successful, willpower seems intuitive. It's like, of course, willpower is one of the answers, or maybe the answer. And so I ended up not studying with him. I ended up doing a different type of psychology. I ended up studying business psychology. And there were a lot of pivotal experiences and learnings that I had that really kind of turned me against the willpower hypothesis. A lot of what I studied in psychology, so if you study social psychology, you realize that from a social psychology perspective, human beings are, in a lot of ways, the product of circumstance. Who you are in one situation is not who you are in a different situation. Like that is very much social psychology 101. That was new to me because, we're very much like an individualistic culture. So we believe that who you are is just who you are, but it's not true. You're very much influenced by what's around you. So that was really interesting. But where it really started to hit me was actually becoming a foster parent. And just realizing how different these three kids were when you take them from one situation and you put them in another. And then studying poverty and stuff. I mean, there's so many cool studies, like economic studies at Harvard and stuff, where they study, income mobility and about your chances of actually making it in life. And it's literally based on what your proximity is. It's based on your environment. But when I saw these three kids go from one situation where they basically had zero privilege, zero opportunity, like they came from one of the worst environments ever, out in the middle of nowhere. And then you put them in this new situation, and all of a sudden there's these new options available to them. They can go to a school, they can get therapy, they have friends, they can eat good, healthy food. They've got parents who can listen to them and help them process stuff. It's like all of a sudden you see them change, and it's like, okay, if these kids were not in our environment, if they were still in that same place, they would not have experienced any of these things. Neither would we. And so just one quick last thought is that like every environment, I talk about this in the book, every environment has rules. Every environment has a cap, a ceiling. And you can't make choices if you don't have options. And so I call that contextual agency in the book. But our kids in their prior environment literally did not have a lot of options. Like they just didn't have an attentive parent. They didn't get to go to school. They didn't have the option of good food. Like they could not make choices that then they were free to make in a different environment. So that was a lot of it. And then just studying addiction, and addiction, the last thing that any addiction expert will say is do it through willpower. So that was kind of a lot of the entangled concepts that then led me to really go down the rabbit hole of willpower.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm a huge believer that experiences shape our beliefs. And if you don't have certain experiences, you wouldn't believe the things that you do. And that's why for me, it's easier to empathize with other people now having certain experiences, because I can empathize with them, realizing that their experiences have made them believe who they are, rather than me trying to come in and say, hey, your beliefs are wrong. You're thinking the wrong thing. I haven't had their experiences, and they haven't had my experiences. And I think experience is like one of those powerful things that we can have that will help shape our beliefs. And so that's why I'm a huge fan of your work, and I love your book. I think people listening are questioning, okay, so how does someone change their environment then? Not everyone's going to be able to be adopted or be put in a situation like you're the foster kids. So how does someone change their environment? That's the big question, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I think like step one is realizing that you and your environment are like literally two parts of the same whole.
Hmm.
Like that is an important realization that a lot of people take for granted and maybe have never even truly considered because it goes very against Western philosophy. You
Hmm.
know, we're very individualistic. And so I think the first step is just like, one of the core definitions of mindfulness is basically just awareness of context, like
Yeah.
realizing that there's stuff around you that could be influencing you, and then you decide what you do with that.
Yeah.
So that's really what mindfulness is awareness of what's around you and how it's influencing you. So, I mean, that's step one. But I think, um, a lot of self improvement and even just, I mean, all the stuff that's been talked about for so long talks a lot about how you must change from the inside out.
Yeah.
And my belief is that you absolutely must make the decision on the inside to make a change, but the actual mechanism of change actually happens from the outside in. That's why what you were talking about I love, because
Hmm.
it is external experiences or situations or people. It's influence that changes you. And so I think, step one for changing environment is realizing that there's so many tweaks that are very easy to make.
Okay.
There's a quote from Zig Ziglar. He said, "Your input shapes your outlook,
Hmm.
and your outlook shapes your output, and your
Hmm.
output determines your success in life."
Yeah.
So, like, I think step one is just saying, what is all the input coming in? What's the information I'm putting in? What's the food I'm putting in?
Yeah.
All of that stuff from the outside world is going in, and it's literally shaping you. And
Yeah.
so, um, really simply, if you're doing things like watching the news or watching TV or eating bad food, like those are inputs going in that are making you who you are. So,
Yeah.
like, very basic is just, changing the information you're consuming, the people you're around, the music you're listening to, the places you're going. I mean, that's just basic, just really starting to upgrade your standards for what you allow in.
Yeah.
And then obviously, if you've read Essentialism or if you've gone through just any books on
Yeah.
just change in general, it's a lot easier to delete than add.
Yeah.
And so delete the negative stuff from your environment first. Take the apps off your phone, take the extra clothes out of your closet, get the sugar out of your kitchen. Like basically remove the distractions, because if it's in your environment and it conflicts with your goals, then you have to use willpower to decide what you're going to do. Like that's basically another definition of willpower is decision fatigue.
Yeah.
And so if you have stuff in your environment that conflicts with your goals and you're having to continually decide if you're going to actually engage in it, like if there's sugar in your kitchen and you have to, every time you pass it, decide, am I going to actually eat it? That's wearing down your willpower. Like it's
Yeah.
just ridiculous. Make
Yeah.
one decision, which is to remove it. And then you allow so much space for your mind to actually go other places. Those are, I think, a few of the basics.
Yeah, I think those are great examples, and I think you mentioned this in your book too. Talking about the specific things as far as the books you consume, the movies you watch, the music you listen to, your friends that you hang out with. First of all, be aware of those things, right, and how they impact you, and then analyze those and say, okay, which ones are negatively impacting me and how are they negatively impacting me? So if all I'm doing is listening to music in the car and I get home from work and I watch movies or TV or play video games, how is that impacting who I am? You gave a great example of your friend in the book who slowly, after hanging out with this one friend who was very negative, lost his marriage, lost his job, and it was a sad story. But he
Totally.
became a product of that environment where he just slowly, a couple hours a week, would hang out with his friend that would play video games and talk negatively, and then he started to slowly go downhill, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a concept. I'm sure people have heard of this, the butterfly effect. You
Uh-huh.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like basically, small changes in any system have the potential to create huge ripples in other areas of the system. So like you may be doing something small, but it could become an Achilles heel, which ends up taking down the whole house. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's what I've watched happen. I've watched it happen a lot. And so you can't justify small little things and think that those little things are not impacting the entire thing, because every area of your life impacts every other area.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too. Like, let's say we switch gears and talk about health and fitness. Let's say someone like, has their goal, okay, this year is my year. I'm never going to eat sugar again. I'm going to get in shape. and they set their goals, and then boom, 2 months later, they're like, man, this is way too hard. So, I was trying to think of ideas of, okay, how can someone change their environment when it comes to health and fitness, right? You mentioned getting the unhealthy food out of the house. What other specific things have worked for you, or people that you know that have probably followed your book that have helped them on the health and fitness side achieve those goals? Like, how do they change their environment? It's not like they can go sleep in a gym and have a trainer yell at them all day, right? Although that might be something that someone would do if it was something extreme like that. But like, what are some things that you've seen work?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a couple that come to mind. Like, step one is realizing that almost all behavior is subconscious. And the physical body actually is the subconscious mind. Your physical body is your subconscious, and your physical body attached to your brain is an emotional machine. You know what I mean? And so your body is habituated to emotions, and when you perform new behaviors, you throw your body into this negative cycle. It freaks out because it wants whatever it's had, whether it's dopamine or something else. And so when you start doing new things, obviously there's uncertainty because our brain really wants the future to be predictable. And when you do something new, all of a sudden you've placed your body in this unpredictable place where you don't know what the outcome's going to be. I think that's something that we all need to become comfortable with. Psychologists call that tolerance for ambiguity. You get used to being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you just do that by exposure to newness, exposure to new experiences. Like you said, experiences change you.
Yeah.
So behavior changes beliefs. It's not the opposite. Your behavior alters your beliefs. And so I think the first step really, outside of just removing the bad and being aware is this, living with intention. Most people wake up and then are immediately a product of their environment. They're immediately reactive and sucked into the addictions, right? Their body takes over their mind. They're back in their cell phone, getting the same emotional rush to their body because their body's addicted to it. And so I think, what I talk about in the book is morning routine. You wake up, ideally your phone's on airplane mode, because the night before you create an intention and set a commitment that you were going to wake up at a certain time. Hopefully you had an alarm clock go off on the opposite side of the room or in a different room so that it forced you to get out of the room. So in the book, I call those forcing function.
Yeah.
A forcing function is where you put something in place that forces you to do what you want to do. If your cell phone's by your bed or your alarm clock and it goes off, it's pretty easy to hit snooze. But if it's in the opposite side of the room or in the opposite side of the house, you get up. And then, the purpose of a morning routine primarily is to put yourself into a place where you live based on the future you want, not based on the past, not based on yesterday. So I think, for me, I talk about leaving your home environment or at least creating some form of special environment. For me, I like leaving my house. It just gets me immediately I put on my clothes, I leave. But just going somewhere where you can ponder, meditate, write in your journal, pray, think about, it could even be 10, 15 minutes. It could be short. And obviously, if you combine this with a little bit of fitness, you know what I mean? Push-ups or, get your blood going. I mean, talk about amazing. But really, it's just, who do I want to be? The concept is really simple. You be first, and then you do, and then you have. Be, do, have. And so who do you want to be? And then you just live with intention. You then operate from that place throughout that day. So, I think that's kind of step one is don't be a pawn to your environment like most people are. Most people are literally the product of whatever environment they're in. In this way, you actually create your environment. So that's one thing that I think everyone must do is they must wake up every single day with intention, because motivation and confidence are two things that you actually have to earn every single day. Motivation is a byproduct of action. And confidence is also a byproduct of successful behavior. So most people think that success is what leads to confidence. Yeah. But it's confidence that creates success. So if you wake up when you say you're going to wake up, you start putting things in order first things first. Yeah. Then you get these small wins that ripple into confidence. And so you have to do that every day, or else you're going to be a product of something else. A more aggressive strategy for shaping your environment is literally financial investment. And I talk about this quite a bit in the book. Is, when I decided I wanted to be a professional writer back in 2015, I did not have very much money. Grad student, not much, but I made a few small financial investments, because investment psychologically is what creates commitment. When the more invested you become, the more committed you are. And so I spent like $200 on an online course that taught me how to write viral headlines. I bought my domain name for $800. Like these were huge sacrifices. Eventually, I paid $150 to have a 30-minute phone call with one of my favorite writers. Like these type of investments altered my environment. Like, and then eventually, you can really up it. Because your subconscious mind, basically, the idea is that your life or your unconscious mind will only allow you to have what you believe you deserve.
Yep.
So your environment is a reflection of what you believe you deserve subconsciously, and your environment holds you together. And so if you want to shatter that subconscious belief system and radically upgrade your sense of what you can have, you need to perform really powerful behaviors. And to your point, have really powerful experiences. But one really potent, powerful behavior is investing in yourself. You invest money in yourself in some form or fashion. In the case of fitness, it could literally be you actually, you stop some subscription you have and you actually pay a couple $100s for a personal trainer. Like
Yep.
that behavior alone is a huge signal to the subconscious that something's different's going on.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? And then you can really up it, and in the book I talk about, getting mentoring or joining mastermind groups, like specifically surrounding yourself with people who are where you want to be and
Yeah.
getting in those environments and then quickly adapting to those environments, because our brain is so adaptive that when you put yourself into new situations, it's incredible how fast you can take on the identity, the beliefs, the system around you.
Yeah, and that was my next question. You gave some great examples of how do they then maintain that momentum over the long term. Once they adapt to that environment, maybe they get, burned out after a while. Because I know I suffer from this as well sometimes, even as a health and fitness professional. Sometimes I'm like, all right, I need something new that's going to keep me motivated. How do I maintain that over the long term? And you gave some great examples of like hiring a coach or joining a mastermind group so that you're constantly continuing to have to adapt to new environments. Because even for us that, kind of not, I wouldn't say have things figured out, but are kind of like, okay, I know what I need to do to get in shape. But sometimes you go through these ruts in life. And I think it's really important for people to not just learn how to get started, but then from there, let's say, okay, I got started. I'm adapting to this new environment. I'm seeing changes. But then after a year goes by, how do I keep that up? Because people tend to fall back into their old ways of, I did it. It gave me great results, but then I got burnt out or I got bored after a while. So any other tips there or thoughts that come up as far as maintaining that?
100%. My belief is that life is a series of sprints and recoveries versus a marathon.
Yeah.
I think the marathon is where the burnout happens.
Yeah.
That's where you're grinding away and your joints are falling apart and you're like, and you're just exhausted, you're aging quickly. I think that true growth is about like sprinting hard. So like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Josh Waitzkin. He wrote the book, The Art of Learning.
Yes,
really
I've heard of it.
Really smart dude. He talks about how learning is a series of like intense bursts, and then you rise up and you surface like emotionally and you reflect on what happened.
Yeah.
And so, I'm a big fan of, rather than grinding, like I'm more of a fan of gaming. Like as far as turning your goals into games, that's why I think things like CrossFit actually really work.
Yeah.
That's why things like Duolingo for languages work, because it's a gamified process. And so if you can turn your goal into a game, and if you can pursue it as a sprint, like as far as there's an objective, it could actually be, to get a certain level of body fat or be able to do 100 pull-ups, like whatever it is, you have some objective and you actually work to actually get that objective done. Then you rise up, you think about it, you reflect, you recover, and then you set some new goal. I think the idea is that the brain needs constant change.
Yeah.
I mean, the fastest way to age your brain is to not give it new stuff, new experiences, new information. Literally, it's like lubricant for like the car or something. You know what I mean? Like if you're not giving your brain new information, new experiences, new challenges, it fades so fast. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so like, what's interesting is that there's research in psychology that talks a lot about how the older people get, the less open they are to actually seeking new experiences.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to be around new people. They don't want to take on new challenges. They don't want to try things they've never done before. They don't want information that conflicts with their current worldview. Like the older people get, like the less open they are because the openness creates that uncertainty.
Yep.
And that uncertainty is unpredictable and your brain doesn't like that. And your body becomes habituated to whatever it is. And so I think that, I just think, you have to seek new things, like whatever it is, so it doesn't matter how healthy you were in the past. Like, one of the things I really love that Dan Sullivan, and he's the founder of Strategic Coach, says is he says you should always make your future bigger than your past.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems with success is actually if you've been successful in the past, it's easy to plateau. And and so I think that no matter what your past looks like, no matter what challenges you took on before, you absolutely have to be pushing your boundaries, doing new things, experiencing unpredictability, trying and just turn into a game. I mean, that's kind of what I think. Like, I mean, for me, I've been the top writer at medium.com for 3 years. Like, I didn't plan to do that. I actually never even planned on blogging, to be honest with you. Like, it was a means to an end. And when I got the end I wanted, I then had to really think, do I even still want to do this? Like, the motivation was gone. It was like, it became hard to do something that I was an expert at. Like, it literally, like, something that I could just sit down and just do because I had so much why was gone.
Yeah.
And how do you get that back? You have to re-expose yourself to new frontiers, and you have to redevelop a reason to do something, and you have to go way beyond what you've done before. You have to actually pursue something totally different and something that challenges you and excites you.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys to that for me is, meeting new people, traveling, having new experiences with mastermind groups, networking with people that have different, thoughts or beliefs than you. And I think that expands your horizon, challenges you in a new way to kind of, find what your next passion is in life or what the next chapter is in your life. And I think for me, that's how it applies to me. And I think hopefully a lot of people listening can kind of see that as like, there's no finish line. There's no like, all right, I made it, I arrived, I'm done. Even in health and fitness, it doesn't happen that way. It's constantly reinventing yourself and finding new challenges. Like for me, the past couple of years, I did a triathlon, which I've never done before. Because I hate running, but and then swimming was a whole nother challenge. So I think for me that applies to me, but hopefully people listening as well. The next question I have for you, Ben, is how do you apply this to your kids, giving them new experiences? Obviously, going from where they are to where they are now, how do you, try and create these experiences for them? What are some things you do?
Yeah, I love that, man. I think, first and foremost, we create an environment in our home, that is like a safe haven. It's a place where they feel safe. It's a place where they feel comfortable. It's a place where they love to be. I mean, this home, and just where we live in general, so one of the things that I believe is that every environment, obviously every environment has a culture, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the culture is the underlying climate, the feeling, the energy, there's an emotional frequency or energy everywhere you go. And, we want our house to just be an amazing oasis for our kids. You know what I mean? Just a place that they love to be and a place that they feel safe, comfortable, and where they're not bombarded by just a lot of the crap that's going on in the world. I mean, that's step one, but step two is just, providing various experiences to open up their horizons, going to homeless shelters, showing them that, going to third world countries and doing service and just showing them that, because people adapt so quick, even though our kids came from extreme poverty, especially as children, they become accustomed to the luxuries of life. You know what I mean? And you have to continuously be reminded and triggered and brought back to that. But we also just let our kids have opportunities. Like if one of them wants to play chess, we'll let him go play chess. I mean, it's just trying to remove all the obstacles so that they can be surrounded by what they want to be. I mean, we're pretty basic. I mean, it's not that extreme, but
Yeah, it's not like every day they wake up and they have no idea what's about to hit them with a new experience
No,
that you guys are
no,
like
no, no.
planning. No, but I love that. I think that's great examples. I still think it's one of my beliefs that if you take every American teenager and you put them in a third world country for 6 months or 2 years, like an LDS mission, put them in a third world country for a little while to have them have that experience, I think is powerful, and I would love to see that, and I kind of wish a lot of American teenagers would be able to have that opportunity. But the last question I had for you, Ben, was okay. You talked about morning routine. What's your morning routine look like? Like what are you doing these days? Because I know for me it's changed over the years. Like a year ago, 2 years ago, it was a little bit different. What does yours look like now?
Yeah, mine's always changing as well. Right now, honestly, I've been waking up at like 4:30 in the morning. Like my body's, I don't know why, my body is just. I'll set an alarm at 5, and I'm waking up at 4:30.
Okay.
I think a lot of it's because I'm getting ready. So because I think that we go through like sprints, like rather than just a continuous up. Like I think we go through huge ups, and then there's like a little dip, and then we figure it out and then launch, and like kind of like you, like I think there's constant reinventions. I think that it's usually every like 3 or 4 years, honestly,
Yeah.
2 or 3. But that's where I'm getting ready to go. As I'm like about to go on this upswing, and I can tell because I keep waking up early and like. Um, but right now is what I'm doing in the morning is I'll wake up, and I journal every morning. Throw on some sweet music that just kind of gets me going. I
Yeah.
journal about my future. And I journal very affirmatively.
Yeah.
Just about where I'm going, what I'm doing, who I'm being, just all of that be, do, have stuff. I mean, I do that every day, and I love it. I mean, I've been journaling for 10 years. I have just stacks.
Yeah.
And to me, that is a huge emotional regulation tool. It's a huge imagination primer,
Yeah.
and it just gets me in that zone where I can just walk with confidence, walk the way I want to walk, be who I want to be, and act the way I want to act. So I do that every day. Lately, like I said, I've been using Duolingo. I'm learning Spanish right now. Like here in Orlando, there's so many Spanish people, and um, to me, it's really good for the brain to learn a
Hmm.
new language. It's just challenging me to learn in new ways. It's teaching me the learning process again, like to take something kind of totally foreign. And so I spend about 30 minutes, on Spanish right now, which
Hmm.
is super fun. And then I'll do various things, dude. I mean, it's not exactly the same every single day, but if I've been mulling over an idea, I'll start writing it. I'll throw together an article in like 1 to 3 hours.
Wow.
Eventually, I'll find my way at the gym. I'm writing a book right now. I'm working on my dissertation.
Yeah.
I'm launching an online course, which is already out. But like, and so there's different projects
Yeah.
that consume me. But for me, it's less about like trying to do a bunch of things. I usually just have like 1 or 2 things that day that are like actually like I want to take a few steps forward on that I work on. And then, I'll just chill. Like usually I'm done working by like, unless there's like podcasts like this, but usually I'm done
Yeah.
working by like 2. My kids get
Wow.
home at like 2. My kids get home at like 2 to 3.
Yeah.
After that, I'm done. So really from like 5 to 2, it's a mix of learning Spanish, writing. I'll listen to like a book or two on Audible a week,
Yeah.
sometimes more. So sometimes I'll just literally spend the whole day just listening to a book.
Awesome.
Like it's just different every day. You know what I mean?
And how do you expect your life to change once the twins come? Are you ready for that?
No, dude. I'm not ready for that at all. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for the foster kids. I'm still processing the
Sure.
fact that I'm a father. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
still don't really get it. We just moved, still like processing all the
Yeah.
repercussions of this move. I'm one of those people that like I downplay how things are going to go. Like for me, I'm just like it'll be fine. We'll figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and usually it seems to work. Like it will be way different than I expect, and
Sure.
I know that we're going to adapt to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the points I wanted to make in the book is that it doesn't really matter what you take on. Eventually, so there's the quote, pressure can bust pipes or it can make a diamond.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, if you take on too much, um, obviously things can fall apart, but I'm not really sure what that limit is.
Yeah.
I'm not a kind of person that places limits. I know that human beings are so flexible, um, that usually what I've seen, because people are like, how did you take on 3 kids while you're in a while you're in a PhD program, while you're doing all these things. And I'm just like, dude, we just figured it out. Like,
Yeah.
you just figured out it's not clean, it's not sexy. It's like, we're not amazing, and we try
Yeah.
our best. We're far from ideal parents, but we're learning, and so that's just like,
Yeah.
that's why I just really want people to take on more, is because what they figure out is that they can handle it.
Yeah, that's why I love your book, man. Talking about adapting and adapting quickly, and that's how you survive in this life. That's how you thrive and move forward. So I love that, man. And no one's ever ready. No one's ever like, all right, I got to get this in order before I have kids. And it's like, just get thrown in there and you'll learn it. That's how I learned Portuguese. Was honestly just being thrown into a situation where I knew very little, and the rest was like, all right,
You had to.
I'm gonna make mistakes and just say the wrong things, and I don't care. But then, boom, you become fluent because you adapt to it. So
Immersion, dude.
yeah, man, I love it. So yeah, I know that you're not really on Instagram. So where can people find you? Like, what's your websites? How can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, I need to get on Instagram. I'm not a fitness guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like I'm not like, I mean, but I've got it, you know
There
what
you
I
go.
mean?
Yeah.
I'm not like as ripped as you, but what I mean, I am. But basically, benjaminhardy.com
Mm-hmm.
is a place where people can go. That website's actually literally being reconstructed right
Cool.
now, so I don't know when this video is going to air or this, but benjaminhardy.com, you'll be able to find, my book, my best articles. I have like an online mastermind program that is a cool mentoring program through there. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you just Google Benjamin Hardy, you'll find me. And benjaminhardy.com is kind of the gateway to everything you need.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ben. Really appreciate what you're doing. Oh, really quick, when does your next book come out?
Yeah. Not till next October, man. Right now, the working title is
Sure.
Personality Isn't Permanent.
Cool.
But I don't know. It might not be called Personality Isn't Permanent, but it's a book all about, it's a book takes to the next level of transformation, memory, emotion, experience, like
Yeah.
what we're about here, and how to shift all that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. You talked a little bit about personality in this book too, and so I'm
Oh,
excited.
yeah.
I'm excited for that, man. And yes, I know what that's like. My book launches in February 2019, and so I'm kind of in the same process as you are. So, but anyways,
Happy to help you, man. Launching
yeah.
is a very transformational experience, and it can be very positive or very negative.
Yeah. Luckily for me, it's been positive so far, but it's a lot of work. It's more work than people imagine. So, respect to you, especially with all you got going on, Ben, and thanks for fitting in this podcast. And really appreciate what you do, man. You're really helping a lot of people, in my opinion, because I think a lot of people just think, man, so there's something wrong with me. There's something, that I just don't have that these other people have. And so I think your book gives people hope that they can change, and it starts with simple things. And so you're helping people, give them the tools to change their environment to then change your life. So thank you for coming on, Ben.
Dude, my man.
Okay.
Thank you as well. Have a good day, brother.
Yes, sir. Talk to you soon.